This is a walkthrough of the post-process volume on the sci-fi hallway. Uh, let's see, here is with the post-process volume off, with the post-process volume on. I've added a little bit of bloom, just a touch. Mini V, Max EV, left those at 1. Chromatic aberration, just a touch at 0.1. See exposures. The lens flare, just a very slight lens flare. I didn't want to go too crazy with that. Same as with the vignette. And then the global in the shadows, I played around with to keep it pretty realistic looking. Didn't want to get too wild there. With the LUT, I got a horror blue. Pretty mellow on that front as well. And let's do a playthrough. I have some point lights here on the floor or close to the floor to make it to make it look like reflections off the ceiling lights. And then a point light way out out there to give it this green. Might be a little bit bright. When you're standing right here, that's a bit bright. But from down here, it's pretty good. Yeah, that is my post-process volume work on the sci-fi hallway. Here is my post-process volume scene of this outdoor scene, the Elvish Ruins. Here is with the volume on, with the post-process volume off, on. So added a small amount of bloom. Let's see, what else have we done here? I feel like this exposure kind of cleans up a lot of the, like those mid-tones that are kind of boring and drab without it. It feels kind of dull, so that kind of crisps that up a little bit. The highlight contrast, same thing here. Without it, it feels kind of flat, and then with it, it adds some serious contrast in the highlights, which I like. Without this, I noticed that like in all of these, like these rocky areas, especially up in here, it makes those look a lot nicer. The vignette, I think that adds a lot to this. Without it, like again, it feels really flat, and then with that, just a little bit of it, 50%, it kind of brings things in together nicely. The contrast, I just came down a little bit overall. Same with the saturation global wise. Gain, same. Shadows, I came up with the saturation and the contrast on that. And then the mid-tones came down in saturation and up in contrast, which I'm pretty happy with that. Highlights down overall and contrast up overall. I ended up using this LUT film stock table. I didn't want to use a really heavy LUT on this because I kind of like without it, it's pretty close to where I wanted it to be, and it just adds a little bit there. So let's do a playthrough. I think overall this looks pretty good. It looks pretty realistic. I like I like the way the shadows are crisp and clean, and maybe some of these white highlights are a bit too much, especially on this like heavy stone surface here. The highlight that could be like a little bit darker, I think. Um, but overall, I'm pretty happy with this. And that's it for the outdoor post-processed volume. Here is a post-process volume nighttime or dusk for in the Elvish ruins. Here is the post-processing on and post-processing off. First off, I added some point lights here. I have point lights, all in this area. I have one down here, one here, one right here actually, up top here, and then one kind of behind the door to make the door glow as well. Looking at our settings here, for our post-process volume, intensity for bloom, I brought that up to 2 to kind of give it a nighttime haze, if you will. The exposure, brought that to 1 to kind of darken things up. Chromatic aberration, 0.3 there. Shadow contrast, I bumped that up really high to darken things up as well, but not get them too dark. And the highlight contrast, put that down for the same reasons. Shadow threshold 2, detail strength 1.5. Lens flares, there are some lens flares in here. You can see just ever so slightly right into the, when you're looking at them. Let's see where else. All of these settings I left the same from my last post-processing of the daytime of this, and I think they're great the way they are. For the color grading LUT, I have a moonlight table here. The intensity of that set at 0.3. So let's do a playthrough of this. So there's the 1 point light up here. Obviously those are all point lights as well. Another point light next to this little angel guy. I think some of these areas are pretty dark, but that's okay. I think overall the scene's still pretty light, which is good, which is what we want for nighttime. There it is.